Welcome back to another episode of the Goonery. Very exciting day. It's opening day for Major League Baseball. A lot of different expectations for our teams on the show this year, but nonetheless, we're very excited. We got the Final Four coming up, but we're gonna start the show off with Goonery of the Week. Jacob, you want to just get right into yours?
Yeah, so my Goonery of the week, the Dodgers are playing the Rockies today, and Cody Bellinger hit a home run. It went off the left fielder's glove and landed in left field. Well, I've never seen this before, but Justin Turner was on first base. He thought the ball was caught, so when he was at second base, he turned around and ran the first. Well, since Cody Bellinger passed him, he's technically out. So instead of a two-run home run, he was out and it was ruled an RBI single. So my Goonery of the week is just the whole situation.
Yeah, I mean, I when I first saw that video come across on Twitter, I that's just such little league nonsense that you don't think you would ever see it at the major league level. And then the best part about it was Dave Roberts coming out and trying to argue about it with the umps. But what is there to review at that point and argue? I mean, he passed Turner in baseline, and shout out to Vegas because they probably got a pretty payday from that one after Bellinger. I mean, there's still game time going on there in Denver, but shout out to Vegas for anyone who had bet no for a Cody Bellinger home run today.
I just seen it. That's bad. I know it's over today, but you just playing spring training. How in the hell does that happen? At least just wait before you get back to the bag or something. Because I mean, if you're looking to run, you're gonna stop like halfway from between first base and second. So just wait it out because that's embarrassing. I don't know how you get a home run and an out in the same play, but I guess we just see how it happens, which is pretty interesting to say the least.
Yeah, and the Dodgers are especially are one of the last teams in Major League Baseball you would kind of expect to see that type of shit happen to. Just they run like a well-oiled machine, and now they're down 8-4 right now in Denver to the Rockies. Who saw that? Who saw that coming? But that's why you play 162 games.
Yeah, speaking of the Rockies, their old third baseman is paying some big dividends for my favorite team at the moment, and I must tell you, just well, the Cardinals are up 11-6, and a lot of it has to do with Goldschmidt and Arenado. That 2 and 3 is absolutely filthy. I know I got it mixed up, but regardless, the point is that duo is going to be something special. I'm here for it. Everyone else has to fall in line, obviously, but just knowing that Goldschmidt finally has protection in the lineup now, that's amazing to me. And it seems like for the past couple of years, he hasn't had that.
Yeah, and considering what the Cardinals kind of gave up to get Arenado too, I mean, I remember we recorded a show, I think either the day of or the day after that trade was announced a few months back, Brandon, and just couldn't wipe the smile off your face. I don't blame you. I mean, Arenado is as special as they come as a third baseman in Major League Baseball. Gold glove defense, year in and year out, gonna hit above 300, gonna hit you 35 plus home runs. I mean, he's incredible. He is incredible, and he's a guy who in my messed up, convoluted mind, I convinced myself, oh, maybe there's a way the White Sox will uh, will open up the checkbook and go after Arenado. But in reality, they won't even go and get Charlie Blackmon from the Rockies after Eloy Jimenez tore his pec right off the bone. So two different situations, but
Yeah, and it's it's like Goldschmidt was our pool holes, and like it was a time where it was maybe just him, and then Scarola came along, and Scott Rowland is that Nolan Renato. Now is just looking for our Jim Edmonds. Who's gonna be our Jim Edmonds? Who's gonna step up in the outfield? I hope it's Dylan Carlson because I love the potential that he brings. I think that just see how he swung the bat early with that big home run in the first inning. I would hope he just molds into that top prospect and that cornerstone in the outfield that we're looking for him to be. Obviously, he still has things to work out. He has strikeout issues, and sometimes he chases just really, really bad pitches. But that's why we play 162 games, just like you said. We get to see all these things unfold, and I hope that he improves, because if he improves and you have Tyler O'Neill that's in the outfield, and whether Harrison Raider gets back, hopefully he will actually progress to being a complete outfielder, because he's already a Gold Glove caliber outfielder. Hopefully, there's more coming for him, and I think the sky is the limit for the Cardinals if that is the case.
Oh, I couldn't agree more with you. I mean, the tides are for sure turning in the NL Central, and Arenado a big reason for it. And as a White Sox fan who absolutely hates the Chicago Cubs, it brings me a ton more joy than I would like to admit, which is going to lead me into my Goonery of the week, which is just the Chicago Cubs and how they've handled the Anthony Rizzo situation with his contract being up after this year. Anthony Rizzo is just that he's that classic glue guy every clubhouse needs. He's the guy who every kid under the age of 10 years old who's a fan of that team wants Anthony Rizzo's jersey. Going to be selling out jerseys for the rest of his days in Wrigley. And he took a team friendly deal of, what was it, 6 years for 42 million, 7 years, 42 million, something like that, either 6 million or 7 million AAV a few years ago. And he wanted at least $100 million, and the Cubs offered him a 5 year, $70 million deal, which Anthony Rizzo called disrespectful and embarrassing on the Cubs end. Look, I get it. Rizzo's 32. He has back problems. He won you a World Series. He doesn't want to leave. He plays Gold Glove defense still. And the Cubs are now going to be crying poor when they just made $3 billion in revenue last year, and they continue to build around Wrigley to bring more money to them. I mean, as a White Sox fan who has dealt with Jerry Reinsdorf crying poor my entire life, it just brings me so much joy seeing the Cub fans I know seething with pain, just knowing that the Cubs are now crying poor and entering right back into a rebuild.
The Cubs are interesting because after they won the World Series that year, they won 103 games. In the 90s, the next 2 years, still were a pretty good team. And then 2019, they won 84 games, struggled. And then last year, I don't really want to count last year just because it was 60 games with COVID. Just it was just weird for everybody. So I don't really think last year was a good evaluation tool. But they kind of lost their spark necessarily from a few years ago, and they just aren't the same team. They're the Cubs. They have that historic franchise, but in sports, especially baseball, the "we can't afford you" isn't like they have so much money they can afford whoever they want. Especially in baseball, there's no salary cap. But the whole Rizzo situation is really interesting.
I'll tell you this. Um, so first things first, there's always like when you hate a particular team, there's that one guy you feel like you have an irrational hate for, but you see it as justified just for your own reasons. I feel that way about Anthony Rizzo, but that's just my own reasoning. I won't even get into that. To touch on the Cubs, and this is not coming from a hate place of hate, because I am a Cardinals fan. If you look at everything that has unfolded after the World Series year, the Cubs were slated to be a dynasty, or that's how the media wanted you to believe what was going to happen. And they have absolutely just wrecked every single situation possibly they have gotten themselves into. Chris Bryant, even though he's on the team, he was slated to be traded. They have not reached anything with Javier Baez. Joe Madden got ran out of town, and John Lester got ran out of town. Kyle Schwarber going. They have a lot of pieces that's missing. And granted, on paper, this is still not a bad baseball team, at least offensively, because you would think that for the weapons that they've had on their offense for the past couple of years, that they would have ran off maybe another World Series or two. It's not happened. So when you look at how everything has been structured after the World Series year, they said we got a World Series and now we could probably just mail it in. And I don't think it was really mailing it in, but also how have you not won more championships with the rosters that you have constructed? And as quickly as it got constructed is as quickly as it's going to dissipate. And it's nobody's fault but themselves, literally. And why would I feel bad for them? Why should I feel bad for them? This is all on them. And if it was a situation where there was just team just offering more money, then you'd be like, damn, that's tough break, whatever, whatever. But that's not the case. They're just lowballing and they're not doing right by their players, and it's shameful to see.
It's just like you were saying, it's a failed dynasty. It's going to go down as one of the all-time failed dynasties we've seen in American sports, in my opinion. I mean, top with that lineup, you have Anthony Rizzo, you have Chris Bryant, you had Javi Baez, Wilson Contreras, Kyle Schwarber at one point when he was healthy. It blows my mind how far they've fallen. And something I've noticed the past few years is the Cubs get hot and cold together as a team, like any lineup I've never seen before. I mean,
Absolutely.
last year you saw it. I mean, I know it's the 60 game COVID season. Baez and Bryant both hit right about 200. I think one of them hit right below 200 at like 195, something like that. Just absolutely brutal. And Bryant's a guy who I think, in my opinion, I think by the trade deadline, the Cubs are going to trade at least two of four between Bryant, Rizzo, Contreras, and Baez. I lean towards it being Bryant and Baez because I think they'll end up trying to keep Contreras just because of how young he is, and finding a good offensive catcher in Major League Baseball is very hard to come by. But I would not be surprised to see Bryant leave Chicago and end up being very successful wherever he ends up.
I think it's all about how the cookie crumbles when it comes to Baez because if he has a season like he did last season, granted it was abbreviated, I think that they will be willing to trade him. Bryant is gone. He's gone. They didn't include him in trade talks for no reason. But if I'm calling the two out of the four, it's going to be Bryant and Contreras. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Contreras was being more shocked than Baez throughout the offseason. So if it turns out to be him, I would not be surprised whatsoever. But I, I going back to the failed dynasty, a lot of people are going to see it as it wasn't a failed dynasty because they got their first World Series in 108 years. Truthfully, that's not enough, especially for a team that was their best team in a very very long time. Probably dating back to 2008 when they won the Central. That was the last time they won the Central before 2016. That was their best team, and you can't even compare the two because the 2016 team was absolutely solid. They were solid on both on all ends. So you can't possibly say just because they won a championship that it's not a failure. It's a gigantic failure. And it culminated last season when they lost to a Marlins team that they had no business losing to in the first place.
I think that Bryant and Baez are going to be the most likely guys to get traded. Bryant, they were shopping him the offseason, and Contreras and Baez are around the same age, but as like Ben said, it's a lot harder to find a good catcher than a good middle infielder. So with Baez really struggling last year, and again, I think we got to kind of throw out the 60 game season. If he has a bounce back year, hits similar to his career averages, then it's a lot easier to tell teams like, hey, he just had a bad stretch, and this is the player who he is. And it's a lot easier to deal with. But if they're hanging around 500 or under 500 at the deadline, then I think those guys could be moved.
Yep.
No, absolutely, absolutely, going to look very different on the north side next year, in my opinion. But Brandon, let's pivot towards your Goonery of the week.
Okay, so before I go forward with my Goonery of the week, I want to preface what I'm going to say by saying this. I will never ever hate on somebody taking opportunities to further their career or more money, anything like that. I'm not like that. I think everyone should progress and get what is needed to go forward. With that being said, let's talk about Chris Beard, formerly the head coach of the Texas Tech basketball team. He accepted a contract to go to basically across the street from Texas. I have two issues with that. Number one, this is the same guy that said he was committed to Texas Tech verbatim. By the way, this is what I'm saying. He was as committed to Texas Tech as Bear Bryant was committed to Alabama. That's a pretty damn big deal if you really think about that. And number two, you went across the street to for more money and to a rival. Now, think about this. You won't see a lot of people coming at him because he's got such a prestigious program and he's going to bring Texas back. Whether I mean, it has to be in basketball or football, right? It has to be either one of those sports. But my biggest thing is, imagine if a player did this. Imagine if a player was highly touted, was not getting playing time for whatever reason, and he felt as though, hey, I need to move on and get a better opportunity where I could play and get my degree. They would kill players for that. They're killing players for opting out for their own gain, and them trying to get the financial freedom that they're looking for outside of trying to make the league and win a championship and all that other jazz. I am so sick and tired of the hypocrisy from head coaches who try to who want players to sell them on being all in and just working hard every day and just making that commitment to their program, yet they could run across the street for more money. I don't like that. It's hypocritical and it's not right. And I think that more people should be criticizing this move than people really are. Because to me, it's disrespectful and extremely hypocritical.
I agree with you. That is extremely hypocritical. And another thing people don't talk about this, we could have another discussion just based on transfers. But when a normal student wants to go from like Washington State to like Central, nobody cares. If you want to go home, if you want to go like change your mind, you want to go to a different school for a different program, nobody cares. And I get it, it's different with the athletes, but them going to a different school to play basketball or wanting higher competition or was it the right fit? That's really nothing differently than what regular students do. I think Chris Beard being at Texas Tech, he did a really good job there, really good coach. And I get he's a Texas alum and he's a Texas guy. And it might be the only job where he accepts that for. But you're right. If a all Big 12 player at Texas Tech transferred to Texas, or an all Big 12 player at TCU transferred to Baylor just because he wanted to play a better team, people would rip him. And it's kind of the same thing.
And
Absolutely.
here's my thing with the whole Beard situation was, like you said, he had the lifetime loyalty to Texas Tech. Texas Tech never even really locked him up onto a written contract. I guess it was just kind of on a rolling basis where they would just come back and come to terms every year. Kind of what I was reading on Twitter. Correct me if I'm wrong if you guys saw it differently. So I think that's pretty crazy on Texas Tech's end, but at least they don't have to deal with a buyout in that situation for their sake. But the thing that I can't get out of my head is it's a death sentence going to Texas thinking you can bring a program back. Look what's happened the past 10, 15 years with not only their basketball program, but their football program, running Herman out of town, running Shaka Smart out of town to go coach at Marquette. I mean, good luck, Chris Beard. Good luck thinking you're going to turn that program around. Not that Texas is not a good program. I'm not saying that they're not. They were good this year. They came into the tournament with lofty expectations, kind of shit the bed a little bit. Well, not kind of, they did. And it's just, it's unbelievable that anyone thinks that they can turn any Texas program around, thinks they can turn any program around at Miami. It's just those are the two programs everyone's. And I'll even throw Michigan football in there with Harbaugh. I hate to do it, Brandon, but it's the truth. It's,
You're
those are
covering
just
your
those
mic, by the
programs.
way.
What'd you
Yeah.
say?
There's
You're
something
covering
going
your
on with
mic.
your mic.
My bad. My bad. So, but it's unbelievable. It is unbelievable thinking that he's going to turn that program around. Not saying he can't do it. He's a great, phenomenal coach. 2019 AP Coach of the Year. I don't see it happening.
I'll tell you this because I was going to talk about this if we was going to discuss the Final Four, but I mean, when you see what Jawan Howard is doing with Michigan, and even then, like Michigan basketball is not as big as Michigan football, but when you are a head coach at Michigan, it doesn't matter what sport, you are going to get pressed. So what Jawan Howard did this season, it was it was pretty good. And the on top of that, it's going to only get better from here. He has a lot of good recruits coming in. So can it be done? Absolutely. But I didn't even think about how these coaches come into these high profile programs that have been in the shitter for at least like the past couple of years and they just haven't done much. You know how hard it is to turn it around. And here's the thing too, you do not get a lot of time to turn it around. Especially even if you're a high profile coach, Michigan is the outlier because they kept Jim Harbaugh past his buying time. But just in general, you have a this is a program that if you don't turn around a couple of years, it's not going to materialize to anything good for you. So if you want to take that risk, go ahead. But do you think it's worth it leaving a team that you was building for the past couple of years to go to a team that you may be able to build, but you may not be able to get over the hump? Because at the end of the day, it's Texas. People expect championships out of Texas, no matter if it's basketball or football. If you want to take that risk, go ahead. But I don't suggest it. But
And
it's a good
just
point.
to and just quickly, you mentioned Juwan Howard and his ability to bring in players. I'd be remiss to not mention this Illinois freshman guard Adam Miller has officially entered the transfer portal today, and all indications lean towards him going to Ann Arbor because those were his 1 and 2 options when he was deciding to make a decision coming out of high school. And he can play. I mean, he had a rough freshman year. I mean, he averaged about 8 points a game, I think, and he did not shoot the three like he was supposed to. But if he wants to transfer, he had the keys to the kingdom next year with Io DeSumo gone, and he doesn't think he'll be able to handle it. Let him transfer. Go to Ann Arbor. Go be second fiddle there. That's fine. But I'm sure that won't come back to bite the Illini. I mean, as we see, it's going to be a rough next couple of years, unfortunately.
I'll be yeah, because Michigan has a lot of recruits coming in. Eli Brooks may return.
Hmm.
I believe Mike Smith is returning, if I'm not mistaken. I really don't give a damn if he does or not at this point. But yeah, he's gonna. I don't suggest to move to Ann Arbor for him at all, especially with everything that's going on.
I
Oh, I would. No, you go, Jacob.
oh, my bad. I was gonna say I think Illinois will, I think they're at the point now where with Underwood and he's got all his guys in that they're still gonna be pretty good. And speaking of Michigan, outside of I think Livers is probably gone. He's a senior. I don't think he's come back for Saphir. And Brunson Wagner's gonna be a high pick. Outside of those two dudes, like they're gonna bring a lot of guys back. I know Michigan's got some older players, but and I don't know. Again, they're with their fifth year because guys can get a fifth year eligibility, but number one recruiting class and Michigan and Illinois, I think, are at the points of their programs where you can expect them to be good every year.
Since we're on the topic of Michigan, I had to express my pain for being a fan again. And I feel like I go through this November, sometimes in late March. But I don't want to take anything away from UCLA. They're making a good run, and sometimes it's just the right team at the right time, and they seem to be that team. But you put 49 points up against UCLA. You couldn't make layups. You scored 5 points in 5 minutes. I mean, you want to talk about a gut punching loss? I mean, that was just like I've witnessed a lot of Michigan losses, whether it's basketball, football, that were just like gut wrenching. And I think the most obvious one is the Michigan State muff punt. That was like the most gut wrenching of them all, or JT being short, which I'll hold on to this day. But that game, it hurt for many reasons, and most of it is the guys didn't show up, the guys that got you there, and you were just looking for them the entire game, and you just kind of felt like when they weren't making shots, or when Johnny Juzang went full Luke Hancock on us, it was gonna be not so good from there. I can't be too upset because knowing that there's a future ahead for Michigan, and I know that things will maybe eventually get better. But this is what being a Michigan fan is: losing games you shouldn't lose, and missing out on a Final Four. Which, if we would have lost to Gonzaga, there's no shame in that whatsoever. You would have been Gonzaga; it would have been beautiful. But I don't think anyone was expecting for you to win. But you gotta beat 11th seed, man. You have to. You had to. They handed the game on a silver platter more than a couple of times, and it just did not happen. It's frustrating. It's sad, and just Michigan's just abusive at this point. They're abusive.
The thing about the Michigan game that caught my eye, and Johnny Juzang was great and hit some really tough shots. But the last 15 minutes of the game, Cody Riley's in foul trouble. He's really UCLA's only big. They threw it in the post every single possession, and I totally get it because of the size advantage, and Dickinson's pretty good. But I don't know if I just didn't realize this. Dickinson like refused the pass, only went over his right shoulder, and it was just you knew exactly what Michigan was going to do, and I think Brown hit a three, Smith hit a three, but it was just them throwing it inside to Austin Davis and Dickinson and hoping they could score a bucket.
And that is true. And I guess because if we're really being honest, that's probably one of the many parts of the game that was working, and that's not saying much either. But Franz wasn't hitting shots. Mike Smith was turning the ball almost every time he touched it. Eli Brooks wasn't getting open. He's probably the best scorer. Shawnee Brown is good, but he's not going to get open all the time. Like they just weren't hitting their shots, and that's just what it comes down to. And yeah, Hunter Dickinson, I personally love Hunter Dickinson. I think he's an incredible player, and I think if he expands his game towards the outside, he's going to be dangerous in the pros. But I think that was a matter of their scoring from the outside not being trusted. They just weren't hitting shots. Franz Wagner just really just shit the bed, and it sucks because he's a really good player. He's really good, but it just wasn't happening. So I get them feeding the post as much as they did, but at the end of the day, you got to hit your shots, man. They had the opportunities, they really did. And credit to UCLA, they was playing some really good defense, but they had opportunities. So you really can't. There's really no excuse for that loss, in my opinion.
Yeah, and Brandon, I mean, you said it best. You got to make your shots to win the game. I think it was in the last 2 minutes they went like 0 for 7 or 0 for 8 or something like that from the field. They airballed two threes there at the end. But the thing that had me scratching my head the most was when they're down two with what was like 2 seconds left and they're inbounding on the baseline and they had Hunter Dickinson inbounding it. If you're down two, why don't you just try and go for the tie at that point? Get it into your big man. If he doesn't go up strong with it and make the bucket, highly likely he might draw a foul there and
Yeah,
has a chance to at least go to overtime. It didn't make sense to me at the end of the game there. And it's upsetting because as a Big Ten fan, I mean, I am an Illini fan, but I'm a Big Ten fan at the end of the day. I want to see the conference succeed. And it sucks seeing that we lost to the West Coast version of Sister Jean and Mick Cronin's dad because they had to
yeah.
show him a million fucking times on the broadcast.
It's just sad. I mean, and the story was just set up for us. All the Big Ten just got eliminated. We were the last men standing, and we lose to an 11 seed. If it does not get more Michigan than that.
No, it's the truth. It's the truth. So I mean, now four left. We got Gonzaga, we got UCLA, Houston, and Baylor. I mean, we're gonna get, in my opinion, I mean, it's gonna be a great game, but I think it's gonna be as chalk as it's gonna get. You're gonna get a Gonzaga Baylor national championship, I think, and I think Gonzaga's gonna run UCLA off the floor, and then they're gonna run Baylor right off the floor as well.
Gonzaga, they like I grew up a Gonzaga fan. My brother went there, and this season's been one of the most surreal seasons I have as a sports fan. Gonzaga has beat the number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 8 seed in their bracket by double digits. They've had one win this season by single digits, and they're undefeated going to the Final Four. They just beat the shit out of everybody. And the way the ball movement they play, the cutting they play, the pace they play, how it's just beautiful. And the whole year pretty much until kind of Illinois came, was playing really well on the stretch. For the first 2 months, it's Gonzaga Baylor, and it'd be really cool if we get that as a national championship game.
Couldn't agree more. And at this point, because like I'm usually that sore loser who doesn't watch the tournament after my team gets eliminated, but you just want to see the two outside of your team. If you are going to watch one game to decide it all, you want to see the two best teams that has been throughout the regular season. So if we get Gonzaga and Baylor, I will be locked into that all the way.
And I was having the conversation with a couple of my buddies the other day. It's just crazy that we've gone from Gonzaga kind of being that spunky mid-major that people are like, oh, could they make a run this year? I mean, it started with Adam Morrison, and they've just gone from being that spunky mid-major into a full-blown national powerhouse, getting five-star recruits, getting four-star recruits consistently. And props to them for building a program like that. And there's an interesting hypothetical that I saw on Twitter the other day. If Brad Stevens never left Butler to go coach the Celtics, would Butler be in this situation over Gonzaga right now, you think?
Ooh.
I think that Gonzaga would still be Gonzaga, but Butler would be at that level.
I agree. I think Gonzaga just is so coached well, and they play in a very, very cupcake like conference too, that they will have no choice but to be good. But that's an interesting thought. I did not think about that because Butler was on the doorstep twice with
Twice.
back to back years too.
They should have won at least one of them.
At the very least, like just imagine if Gordon Hayward shot went in that year. Like, what would be the conversation? I think Brad Stevens would have left, but I think that Brad Stevens would have been left more established
Mhm.
than he was coming in to Boston. That's very interesting to think about. I did not think about that.
I mean, because they've still, I mean, since he's left, they've made the tournament 18, 17, 16, and it's unbelievable. 2010 and 2011, I feel like everyone at least for around where I'm from, everyone was just like, "Holy shit, Butler basketball!" Like, am I a Butler fan? No, I don't know, but it was really cool cheering for a team like that, and I kind of feel like that's what Gonzaga's become for a lot of West Coast kids over the last decade.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
There's a like so growing like I'm in the Seattle area. I went to Washington State. I had an older brother who went to Gonzaga. Growing up, it was like a lot of Washington and Washington State fans didn't like Gonzaga because they were so good, but everybody else liked Gonzaga just because they appreciated just how they play and just kind of the run they made. But there's some pretty salty like UW fans just because Gonzaga how good Gonzaga's been, and Washington outside of really 1 year hasn't been that good and since like 2012 2013. But there's people really respect him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's gonna be cool. I think that they're gonna end up going undefeated, winning a national championship, and they're gonna have their fairy tale ending. And at this point, that's what I'm cheering for. I don't want to see a UCLA Houston national championship. I don't want to see a UCLA Baylor championship. I just want to see the best basketball, like you were saying, Brandon.
Did you guys watch the Oregon State Houston game?
I didn't get to catch it.
I caught the second half. Yeah, it was the Beavers, they scratch and clawed their way
They're
back, and it was
yeah,
an all-time cover for them though, with the 7 point spread at the end there. But
yeah. They went on a great run as well because they were picked last in the pack and weren't gonna make the tournament unless they won the Pac-12 tournament. But Houston Baylor, Houston just just is really tough and really physical, and I think them and Baylor is going to be a really good game.
I agree. And something that I like to pay attention to, just kind of breaking down college basketball, is offensive rebounding. And as
Mm-hmm.
we all are well aware of at this point, Houston is the best offensive rebounding team in the country, and the tallest guy they have on their roster is 6'7". So
Oof.
they're doing something right there. They're doing something right in Houston, and I think that will be a very good game.
Now I must ask a question just to create chaos. So Ben, Luke Garza was named the player of the year today. How you feel about that?
I expected it. I didn't actually expect Ayo DeSumo to win. Did I think he deserved to win over Luka Garza? Absolutely, 100%. I get it. You want to give it to a fat, slow, unathletic center who can't play defense, can't shuffle his feet over a guard who completely rejuvenated a program. I get it. I get it, you know. And now there's rumors Luka might even be coming back to Iowa for a sixth year. So we'll see. Maybe he'll make it a three-peat.
I just want to get your thoughts on it because I know how
Oh,
much you just
oh,
absolutely just adore Luke Garza.
oh. I mean, I I dislike Jordan Bohannon much more than I dislike Luka Garza, but just that whole Iowa team, I can't wait to never watch them play basketball again because I'm never going to be able to find a stream of them playing in Europe. It doesn't even matter.
Uh yeah. Well, that was the answer I was looking for.
Yep, there we go. Yeah. So before we wrap up, any of you guys have any other closing thoughts?
I am very, very excited that draft season is almost coming to a close. I've been just going through so many mock drafts and just looking at film and stuff like that. I'm ready. I know we're not gonna get a quarterback. It's totally fine. It is what it is. But I'm just ready. I'm ready to see the chaos that draft's gonna bring, especially for our beloved Chicago Bears.
You know, I don't even know what to expect at this point. I'm expecting disappointment, to be completely honest. That's just what we've grown accustomed to. But I've been seeing a lot of links to Kellen Mond now the last week or so, which if we took a flyer on him in the second, third, fourth round, I wouldn't hate that at all.
Me
But
either.
if,
If
I mean, he's,
I would be a lot happier getting him in the fourth round than the second round.
oh,
Or
absolutely.
third.
One,
I'm
oh,
not I'm not a
yeah.
fan, but as a developmental guy, I see it and I get it. I just think taking him in the first round is kind of crazy.
Oh, if he's taken in the first round, I'm gonna be on the doorsteps of Hallis Hall trying to burn the place down. But I mean, he's a very talented quarterback. He was talented at Texas A&M. I mean, what he was what a 3-year starter, I believe.
4 year starter.
4 year. Okay, there we go. Even better. I mean, he has the experience playing in the SEC for 4 years. He obviously is talented. He's huge. I mean, he's like 6'5", like 240, and he can sling it. So I don't hate that as a developmental project. I don't want them trading up for Mac Jones. That's the worst case scenario right now, in my opinion. And that's something that I've kind of seen thrown around on Twitter, the Bears being linked to Mac Jones. And if he falls to him at 20, I get the pick. I really do, to be completely honest with you. I wouldn't be happy with it, but I wouldn't be upset, if that makes sense. If he's going to sit behind Dalton for a year, most likely, and then you think it's good to go. But then again, I don't know if I want if I want Matt Nagy having another quarterback to fuck up at his disposal.
Something to think about with Mac Jones and how his pro day went and how much stock do people put into pro days and stuff like that. You just had Bill Belichick shaking his head. You had Kyle Shanahan just looking like he saw a ghost of Matt Ryan in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. Um, like it's really interesting to think, and I mean I don't think he'll fall to 20 because of his pro day because that'd be ridiculous. You
Yeah.
would think that he got caught up on Twitter saying something offensive, but it's something to think about. But to go back to Kellen Mond, I think the best case scenario for the Bears is someone in the first round tries to trade up for somebody, trade back in first round, get out offensive lineman, whether it's Tevin Jenkins or Kissimmee from Texas, or even Grant Newsom from Northwestern. You get a wide receiver in the second round, maybe Elijah Moore or somebody like that. And in the third round, you get Kellen Mond, and you have more picks to dance around with to get another receiver later in the draft. So if I was running the draft, that would be my plan.
I don't hate it. I don't hate that at all. So
Uh,
I'm sure, Brandon, you make a ton of sense more often than not when we're talking Bears. So I'm sure the Bears do the exact opposite. So we'll see.
Exactly.
Sounds like the Bears. I wanted to. So my Goonery of the week was going to be the Houston Rockets because they lost 20 in a row and 3 of the last 5, and then the Cody Bellinger thing happened that I wanted to bring up. But Trey James Harden, don't get Karis LeVert, Jared Allen back, and they're not in a good spot with their franchise. They got some nice young players like Jason Tate, Kevin Porter, pretty talented. Christian Wood's really good, but they've lost a lot of games recently, and I just kind of wanted to bring them up.
What a disaster. I mean, I feel so bad, and people gonna say I feel bad for John Wall. And, yeah, I feel bad for John Wall too because he didn't actually be in that situation. But Steven Silas was just chomping at the bit to get a coaching job. He gets put into this shit. And it's horrible out there. And at the end of the day, he's going to be the one who is going to be scapegoated, and it's not fair. And because of this, it might like the same thing that happened with David Fizdale with the Knicks. He might not never get another coaching job, and that's a shame. He's a young guy, and you don't even know what he could do because the team is just so terrible. It's such a bad situation, and it just how quickly a fall from grace from the Rockets that was a perennial contenders for the past couple of seasons. It is unbelievable what's going on there, and I feel so bad for Steven Silas. He does not deserve what's going on there.
This league, man, this league, only a matter of time till the entire NBA is seeing red with Vucevic and Levine taking over, baby. That's all I got to add.
Okay.
you know I'm yanking your chain there. Come on. But Chicago Bulls basketball, what I would do for them to be good again. I'll tell you though, real quick before we wrap up, that Derrick Rose MVP season, I don't think there's ever been more buzz around a team in this entire city than the year that people thought the Bulls were going to take down the Heat and win the NBA title. I mean, it was unbelievable. It was must-watch TV every single night, and now we have Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic to look forward to. So
Patrick
And Fat
Williams.
Boy too.
see red.
Don't forget about Patrick Williams.
Okay, P. Will, the paw, just trying to blatantly rip off on Kawhi with the claw. I mean, it's just at this point, I love Patrick Williams. I think he's an awesome player. He's going to be very good, but we'll see.
You got Ryan Archingiacono too.
Arch, I mean, he's Tom Thibodeau's wet dream. I'm surprised Tibbs hasn't found a way to get him on his team yet. Just scrappy dude who's going to go out there, take charges, and not score any points and play bulldog-like defense. It's what he wants in his bench players. And yeah, I mean, Villanova legend, Ryan Arcidiacono. So that will just about wrap up this episode of the Goonery. Once again, thank you very much for listening. If you've made it this far, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the show on YouTube. We're on Apple Podcasts, and I believe we're on Spotify as well. So that'll wrap up this show. Go White Sox, and we will see you next week.